Hello, I'm Rebecca Flaherty, and today we're going to be making this pattern in Procreate. This tutorial is an intermediate level one, and I'm going to be using another template from my Arts and Crafts wallpaper set. You can also follow along and make this pattern freehand and without the texture overlays. If you're a regular here, feel free to use the timestamps to skip to the beginning of the tutorial, and if you're new here, then welcome to the Pattern Maker's Toolkit. This one uses a slight variation on the classic ogee shape we've been using for the last two tutorials in this series, and like the last one, we can have some variation between the inner and the outer sets of motifs, except we don't need to draw two sets for this one, as I've designed this middle part to flip around and fit either way. If you've never made a diamond repeat pattern in Procreate before, then this tutorial will help you learn exactly how it works and covers the why as well as the how, if you want to take a look at that before tackling something a bit more complicated like this. So let's start by importing our canvas. I always import files from the gallery screen like this by going to import and then bringing the canvas in like that. The reason I do it that way is because dragging and dropping from the Files app in split screen will flatten all the layers into one if you're importing PSD files. So it's a good idea to get into the habit of importing all your files into Procreate this way. So let's have a look at the layer structure of these. We've got our textures up at the top here. You can't see those at the moment because they don't have any effect on white. You can see it a little bit there, and if I change the background color to something else, you can see those lovely wallpaper textures there. Let's change it back to white for a moment. Then we've got our pattern layers folder. We've got a folder set up for the pink extra motifs on the edges. We'll be drawing all our pattern motifs in this folder, and then we've got our sketch folder here, which has got this transparent ogee type spinning top shape there, and then the template on this layer. We'll be drawing all the motifs in black in the pattern group, the pink ones in the extra group, and then all these around the edge in blue will be made by duplicating and transforming later on. These templates are designed to give you a super quick start in making beautiful patterns, so you can just trace directly over the template and add your own flower and leaf shapes. These sets are perfect both as a relaxing, cozy colouring book type of activity, but not only that, following a template is actually a really good way to learn the mechanics of a pattern layout, which is why I make these tutorials in canvases. So once you get the hang of how they work, you can turn this template layer off and use these templates to make your own designs in there. So starting here in the sketch folder on the draw here layer, I'm going to grab from the brush set that comes with this set of canvases. You can find it, Arts and Crafts, and I'm going to use this berry shape here. I'm going to stamp one of these into each of these black circles. So some of this pattern is symmetrical. This part around the outside, that can be flipped either way. So I'm going to do these ones first, flip them over there, and then we'll add the ones in the middle because they're not symmetrical. So let's stamp these in first. I'm just going to stamp them over the top, and then I'm going to use the select tool to just rotate these into position. So those ones are in place, and because we've got this pink shape on there that goes all the way off the edges, we can duplicate this, tap transform, and we can flip it horizontally, and it's going to grab the whole canvas and put those over that side where they're meant to be. Then we can pinch those together, and I'm going to stamp these into the middle now, but I'm going to make the brush size a bit smaller for that. I'm just going to put one of these over each of these dots here, and then use the select tool to put these ones in place. You can of course use any flower or berry shape you like in here and draw them in freehand too. I like to use these stamp brush motifs for speed, and also because I like the look of patterns where the shapes are all quite uniform. That is just me though, so switch these motifs up to suit your own tastes and aesthetics. Because we have all the stem and leaf positions marked out on the template already for us, we don't need to trace over these for our sketch layout. What we're going to do before we move on to the illustration though is to perform our first offset and get these berries into these positions around the outside of the canvas so that we know exactly where they'll be as we draw the leaves in around them. So with snapping and magnetics both turned on before we do this, I'm going to duplicate this layer here, tap transform, and I'm going to snap it down here into this corner so that you have those orange lines intersecting there. And you'll see we have these berries from up here are now in their position around the outside. So then we come back down to this bottom layer again, duplicate, and do the same into all of the other corners. So snap this one up into this corner. Again, you'll see these berries in their position up there. Duplicate the bottom one again, snap it into this corner. Each time you do this, checking for those orange lines there, like that. Then you can pinch these top 4 together, and I normally invert the colours on this so that I can see which ones I'm meant to be drawing and the difference between them. Once you're at this stage and you know where all the different elements of your illustration will be, you're ready to start illustrating in the pattern group. So let's start by turning on our pattern folder, and we're going to add a layer here above this pattern marker, and that's in there to allow you to add layers from the bottom of the group up. We'll draw in the stems and branches first. I'm going to use Drawing Assist for the first part to draw in these ones down here. So let's come up to our canvas actions and turn on the drawing guide, tap Edit Drawing Guide, and we're going to go to Symmetry, Options, make sure we have Vertical Symmetry on and Assisted Drawing on. Then you can tap Done. And then whatever we draw on this layer is also going to be mirrored over the other side. I'm going to grab the drawing brush from this set, and I'm going to use this dark green for the stems. So trace over all the black lines down here first. Then we can tap up here, tap on the layer we're working on, and tap on Drawing Assist. That will then turn it off, and then we can work on the lines in the middle. I really like making patterns which combine some symmetrical elements with a bit of asymmetry too. It makes some really interesting paths that really draw your eye around the pattern. It's a thing that we talk about a lot for the composition of a standalone piece of artwork, like a landscape or an abstract art print, but I like to see my patterns as pieces of artwork as I'm making them and apply similar principles. The way I work when I'm making a pattern is like I'm drawing a 12-inch square piece of artwork that also happens to be a pattern, and I focus on layout first and motifs last, whereas a lot of other designers I know will draw the motifs first, knowing some of them may not even get used, and then they piece them all together like a jigsaw. This is one of the reasons I tend to refer to myself as an artist and not a designer, whereas I know other pattern makers call themselves designers rather than artists. Let me know in the comments if you typically refer to yourself as an artist or a designer. Just to be clear though, neither method of making patterns is right or wrong, and you can obviously call yourself whatever you like. There are so many different ways of making patterns, and hopefully we can all find one that suits the way our brains like to work. So once you have all the lines in, you can add a layer underneath. Again, this is where this comes in handy, to be able to just add a layer straight underneath, and then we're going to draw the leaves in. So you can either draw these ones in and then turn Drawing Assist on for the ones on the edge, or you can turn Drawing Assist on now, draw these in, and then turn it off. Whichever is going to help you remember to turn it on for these ones, because I pretty much always forget to turn it off. So I'm going to turn Drawing Assist on first. I'll draw these in, and then turn it off and draw these. I'm going to use the next lightest green here to do those. You can make these leaves whatever shape you like, and as I've mentioned in previous videos, I'll put a link in the description for a Pinterest board with some links to some William Morris designs, which are all in the public domain if you want to use them for some heavily borrowed inspiration and know that it's legit. Turn Drawing Assist off here and then carry on with the ones in the middle. Now above this, we'll start to draw in the berries. So I'm going to add a layer right at the top here. I'm going to grab this brown colour and use that to draw in these berries here. Again, drawing in these without Drawing Assist, and then turning Drawing Assist on for these ones down here. If you want these to be a more perfect oval shape, you can hold, and then it's going to snap to an ellipse. So now we're going to add a layer underneath and draw in the outline for these leaf shapes. I'm going to use this colour here, and we'll be eventually using this colour for the background, so it's going to mimic that block print look, and we'll get this little gap around there. So add a layer underneath our berries. Use the thinner brush. And I'm just going to draw this in like that. And then join it up with where I started so we don't get colour spilling out everywhere when we fill later. Once you've drawn all of these in the middle without drawing assist on, then you can tap on the layer, turn on drawing assist, and we'll draw these ones on the outside. Now we're going to tap on this layer here and make it a reference. Turn off drawing assist on this now, and I'm going to add a layer underneath and use this lighter green colour here and fill in all these little shapes in the middle there. And you can either turn drawing assist on for this bit or just quickly go around and fill them, whichever you feel is quicker. Now we just need to add some little dots on the berries. Oh, I just spotted, I forgot that there. So let's add a layer above and we'll just do a little dot on each of these berries. And again, I've forgotten to turn drawing assist on. We'll do drawing assist for these ones on the outside. Then turn it off and do these ones in the middle. And then that is all of the illustration for this middle part done. We now need to do just these little bits on the side in pink, which are going to be done in our extra group. So turn off your texture layers, swipe down with 3 fingers and copy all. Then turn your extra group on, tap on this marker layer here, swipe down again with 3 fingers and paste. Let's put a flattened copy of everything in there. Duplicate this layer, tap transform, and we're going to snap it over here to this side until we have those orange lines crossing there. Then this one here, we can snap over to the other side, pinch those together, and that's now brought the edges into the middle where we can draw on them. So let's add a layer, grab this dark colour, and in order to match this part in the middle here up with what's going to be up here, it's actually going to be useful to bring these parts up into the middle too. We can do that by duplicating this bottom layer, tap transform, drag it up halfway and then halfway over to this side until you have those orange lines there. Then duplicate the bottom one again, snap it up halfway and then again into this corner. You can then pinch all of those 3 together, and then you see we've got that there, and we can use that as a guide when we draw these lines in. We can merge it in with what's up there. So on this layer we just added, I'm going to make this one drawing assist. I'm going to use drawing assist to draw these 2 darker pink stems in. So I think I'll come down this way, blend it in there. Then I'm going to turn drawing assist off. Then I'm going to add a layer and draw in these 2 stems that are going to cross over, so I need these to be on a layer above. So that one there, that one there. Then I'm going to add a layer in between these and then draw the leaves in. And if I fill this now, it's going to do weird things because it's still using that other layer as a reference layer. So let's undo that. Rather than going and finding the reference layer and all of that, I'm just going to make this one a reference, turn it off, and then there are no reference layers. And we can just fill this normally. Where these leaves overlap the stems, you could add a little bit of this gap in there that will provide a nice little bit of separation if you want to. So add a layer above these bottom 2 stems. Grab the colour we'll use for the background and then just draw a little bit in there like that. It looks weird for now, but when we turn the background colour to this one, it's going to look really cool. Trust the process, as they say. And if you wanted to put some in there, you could do that as well. There we go. So that's all the illustrating done now, and we can build out our pattern tile. Let's start by duplicating the extra group. I'm going to drag this one up out of my pattern layers, delete the 2 marker layers at the bottom, tap on the layer and flatten it. I'm going to collapse this group and just hide those other layers for the moment. Let's turn off drawing assist. I'm going to put a mark in this corner and this corner going all the way off the edges, and we're going to put this back onto the edges where it's meant to be now. So let's duplicate this layer, tap transform and carefully snap half of it over here. This is for our final pattern tile, so we need to be really careful that we've got these orange lines there. Then this one underneath, tap and drag that over here again, making sure that that's all snapped into place. Then you can pinch those together. I'm going to turn off the drawing guide now, don't need that line down the middle, and I'm going to erase these marks up there. Now I'll turn this off, turn off the background colour and turn the pattern on and the extra and the sketch off. I'm going to swipe down with 3 fingers and copy all. Then I can turn the pattern layers off because we're done with those for now. Come up to the top here, swipe down with 3 fingers and paste. So now we've got a flattened copy of everything that was in our pattern group. We've still got all of those layers to go back to if we need to, and that's why the diamond method is my favourite way of making patterns in Procreate, because everything is kept at full and perfect resolution, and you can keep all your layers intact in here for edits at a later date if you need to. You can either work entirely in Procreate, or you can transfer to Photoshop or Affinity Photo at this point to build out the tile, which is what I normally do in my normal workflow, but we'll stick in Procreate here. So we need to put a mark in the corners of this tile with the pencil, not the eraser. And let's bring this one on. And you need to make sure that you've got your extra group on top of what's underneath. Then you can pinch those together, duplicate this layer, tap transform, and we're going to do the same as we did in our sketch group, snapping it down into each of these corners. So drag it halfway down, and again, be really careful that you're checking for your orange lines here. Then duplicate this bottom one again, drag it up here to the top left. I normally do this part on my computer in Photoshop or Affinity Photo using an automation to do all this duplicating and transforming in just one step, and there's a link in the description if you want to find out more about that. So we can pinch these top 4 together, erase those marks there in the middle, and on the bottom layer we can erase the ones in the corner. And before we merge these 2 together, we can flip this around if we want to. So at the moment, this bottom leaf here, they're all curving that way. If we grab this one, tap transform and flip it horizontally, I've designed the pattern so that this bit will work either way around, and you can have a bit of variation in the pattern, so you have these ones curving that way and then the other one curving that way, which is kind of cute. So I'm going to have mine that way around. You can have them all going the same way if you want to. Once you've flipped that, if you want to, you can then pinch those 2 together. I'm going to change the background colour to this colour now. Let's tap on this. And then you'll see we now have that nice bit of separation between all of those. And what we can also do is turn the textures on, and now that looks really cool. Before we call this completely finished, I've got one final little detail to add. I'm going to add a layer underneath these, and I'm going to grab this lighter colour and this scattered dots brush, just see what size it is. It's quite small at the moment. Let's make it a little bigger. There we go. I'm going to add some random little dot shapes in this middle part here. So I'm going to use like the inside of these as a barrier and just draw some of these random little dots in there. And this is much easier to do once you've got your whole pattern tile completed. You can see exactly where everything is. So I'm just going to draw these in here like this. Then once all of those are drawn in, I'm going to go to my pattern group. I'm going to duplicate this layer and just bring a copy of it down there so that I've got that one in there if I need it later. And then with this one, put a mark off the corners and duplicate it around the edges. And then just erase those marks. And then we are done. Before we export, it's a good idea to check there's no gaps or mistakes on the seam. So let's swipe down with 3 fingers, copy all, come all the way to the top here and swipe down again and paste. Then I'm going to drag this node and snap it into the middle there, and you'll see 1800 pixels there. Duplicate, tap transform, snap it over to this side. I'm going to add a layer underneath here. I'll fill it with this dark brown colour, and then if we zoom in here, you should see that there's no gaps down there and that all of these motifs here line up, which that's looking good at the moment. So we can pinch those two together, duplicate, tap transform, and do the same with this one, snapping it halfway down, and then just check along this edge to make sure that there's no mistakes along the edge there. That's looking okay, so we can pinch those together, and that is this wallpaper finished. And you can see where we rotated the middle, flip the middle, we've got these ones that go that way and we've got some that curve the other way, and it just adds a nice bit of variation and interest to it. If you want to get your hands on this set of 6 floral arts and crafts canvases, you can find them in my Etsy store, and Pattern Makers Toolkit members get 10% off. Pattern Makers Toolkit is a bit like a Patreon group, except it's all free. I send out one and only one email per month with a freebie in there to help you on your pattern making journey, as well as early access links to some of my YouTube tutorials and full access to all the assets in the resource library. Plus, members get 10% off all the canvases and brushes in my Etsy store. New for 2025, the email also has a set of seasonal prompts each month for helping you plan, illustrate and upload in advance for the key shopping dates in your print-on-demand stores like Spoonflower. If you'd like to join, just click on the link up here or in the description. If you want to see more from me, you can find all of my in-depth classes on Skillshare, and if you're not already a member there, you can get 1 month free when you sign up with this link. And lastly, don't forget to subscribe here on YouTube for your weekly dose of pattern making fun. Have fun, stay creative, and I will see you soon.